So my name's Lewis Finn. I'm the Global Sales Director for API Global. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome with me Ben Allen from Salboy. Ben, if you can just give a few words, please.
Yeah, hi there. Thanks for the intro, Lewis. So my name's Ben. I work here at Salboy as a business development manager, working very closely with Lewis and the guys at API. And yeah, excited to sort of share with you what we're doing over here in Manchester with Obsidian today.
Perfect, thank you. Throughout the presentation, throughout the webinar, I'm going to go through very quickly who API are. I'm sure a lot of you will know and have been on many of our webinars before or bought from us before. Going to dive into a bit more about Salboy to give you all a level of confidence about the quality and type of developer that they are. What's going on in Manchester, sort of the regeneration story, why we're seeing it as arguably not just a #1 investment hotspot in the UK, but arguably across Europe as well. And that's sort of been the case now for the last sort of 4 or 5 years. And then we're going to dive into the development itself. And for me, what makes it stand out as one of the best city centre schemes that we've certainly had to offer. So as a business, we were founded in 2013, so we are 13 years in now. Historically, we have always focused on UK market. Last couple of years, we've also diversified into other international markets. But over the last 13 years, the UK has been our main focus, our main bread and butter. And by doing purely UK for so long, we've been able to expand on a fairly quick trajectory. We've now got 19 offices globally. We've delivered over £2 billion in real estate across 100 different developments. And we've sold over 5,000 units across our global offices. As a business, we've got a group of companies. So API Global sit as the mothership, I suppose. We are the intermediary or the conduit between the likes of Salboy and getting into the global markets. And then within the group of businesses or within the group, we've got subsidiaries. So API Capital Partners is very much around capital and equity deployment. APIX is our sports desk where we work alongside athletes. Redstone's our lettings and management business, so we manage around 1,500 units across the UK currently. Valor and Global is our in-house mortgage arm. They've got access to around 85 different lenders, focused predominantly on expats globally, but can also offer UK solutions. And then GoGoProp is our bridging finance vehicle. So should you as an investor, or if you're on as a partner and your clients are struggling to get conventional finance, we can offer bridging, typically turn it around in about a 3 to 4 week period. The difference with GoGoProp to other bridging finance businesses is that it's asset backed, not credit backed. So it doesn't necessarily look at your particular circumstances or finances. I'm going to go through this slide fairly quickly. I'm sure a lot of people have been on, like I said, our webinars before, have sat with the team, and they understand sort of that end-to-end solution that we provide. But fundamentally, we have the one-stop shop for investors and distribution partners, from the initial research and due diligence all the way through to giving the investment advice, providing the ongoing support throughout that investment journey, whether that be from a tax perspective, from a legal perspective, as well as mortgages, and then post-completion, how we can manage it for you. And then for me, the most exciting part is point 10, is the optimization piece. So very similar to an investment banker or wealth manager, who would give ongoing advice and review of your portfolio, we aim to do the same. And we do that by building in AI and machine learning into a very regimented platform that then allows us to advise whether we should hold the asset, sell the asset, refinance, or release equity at a later date, but constantly giving you advice and ultimately optimizing your existing portfolio.
Yeah, so this is a bit about Salboy. So we started in 2014. We're founded by the two gentlemen that you see there on screen. So that's Simon on the left and Fred Doan on the right. So Fred is actually one of the UK's richest men, and he's kind of our financial backing, and he's kind of part of the reason, obviously both of them are, but for why we've been able to achieve such a large amount in a relatively small space of time. Initially, we started out as a developer, as a lender and a financier, and we were providing small-scale developers up and down the country with lending options. And that's still a big part of the business. But around 3 years into the venture, Simon and Fred, they decided to start building for themselves. So both of them are Salford born and bred. So they call Salford and Manchester their home cities. And the whole plan for us is to redevelop the cities that these two grew up in. And we've been doing that for a number of years now. As well as being a developer, we've also got our own in-house construction company. So Simon and Fred set up Domus Construction. They're one of the largest builders in the Northwest. This gives us total control over the scheme from sort of conceptualization to delivering the project. We are a forward-funded developer, and that's largely due to our financial backing. What that means is when we undertake a scheme off plan on, something like Obsidian, we're not one of these developers that needs investors' capital in order to get spades in the ground and to start construction. What you'll find with a lot of developers in Manchester is they might need to sell out 35, 40, even 50% of the scheme before they can get up and running with enough cash in the bank. And then once sales start to slow down, if building costs go up, this is where developers can encounter problems. And ultimately, we can see delays, worst case scenarios, developers going bust. So we'll never be using funds specifically to build. And that's why we're able to start construction before we actually start selling. So that gives people that peace of mind and sort of that safety net. Another big thing that we offer, and this is very unique to Salboy, is 100% deposit protection. So when we ask our investors to put down 15%, we write a personal guarantee, basically completely securing you against any, if Salboy were to go into liquidation, we overrun on a long stop date, both of which would never happen. It just gives you, again, that peace of mind and that safety net. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see a couple of the schemes that we've completed. So you've got Viaducts, W Residence, and Waterhouse Gardens. These are all Manchester-based projects. And then you've got Old York Mews, which was one we're currently under construction on in Wandsworth down in London. So we are a nationwide developer.
I think with that shows the diversity of what you're offering, right? You've got branded residents, you've got luxury residences, and then you've got quite boutique schemes as well, which retain the character but also offer great investment opportunities. I think we've probably worked together now for the best part of 10 years. We've been involved in a lot of schemes with you guys, both London and Manchester, and investors that we've had go into all these schemes have been extremely happy. And you mentioned before, Ben, about developers needing a certain amount of sales before they can put a spade in the ground, which ultimately leads to delays. Mm-hmm. Quite often, Salboy deliver ahead of time, which can actually be not an issue, but it's a pleasant surprise for a lot of investors.
You'd rather it was that way than the other way, and we're knocking on your door saying you need to tell your clients that we're delayed 2-3 years. 6 months early, it's a good thing. It means you can start earning income on that asset sooner rather than later, right?
Exactly. Good, thank you. Right, what I want to go into now is a bit more about why Manchester, right? So I suppose where API really come in isn't just the investment advice, or isn't just selecting unit 1, 2, or 3. It's fundamentally the market research that underpins the strategy or the fundamentals that we look for. It's not saying Manchester's great, let's invest in Manchester. It's where within Manchester do we consider the next growth opportunities, corridors where investors are going to get true value for money, or for Obsidian's instance, finding what we consider the last bit of valuable land within that ring road that you can really develop on. And that's what you're going to be able to see later on throughout the presentation and the webinar. But I think fundamentally, let's look at why Manchester. Why is it such a global brand? And Ben Simon's a massive advocate of this, and he says it every time we're with him, in that Manchester's now as big as Coca-Cola when you look at it from a brand perspective, right? It's globally recognised. Unfortunately for me, that's arguably because of two of the football teams that are in there. I'm a Liverpool fan, so the hatred for Man United and Man City is strong. But you can't deny that the way that they've positioned the city and the infrastructure investment they've had into the city has been crucial for its development. And that comes down to the amount of companies that are moving there. You know, you've got media, you've got tech, you've got finance, you've got science. Businesses are all moving there now, and with that, are bringing a lot of their workforce with them. And you know, I typically go back to Manchester on a quarterly basis because we've got our office there, which is actually next to the Obsidian development. And every time I go back, something new's happening in the city. Obviously, you've lived there for a number of years, right? And it's almost like a mini London, but on a more, I suppose, more attractive or more appealing scale. I.e., you can walk around the city centre with ease. You don't have to worry about, you know, traveling over an hour to get to different locations. The fact that you've got easy access to the main CBD, the business district, you've got great education, so universities and colleges surrounding the city centre. But for me, it's the transport links. I think it's arguably the best city from a transport perspective in the UK. And that speaks volumes with the connectivity taking you from South Manchester, i.e. where the airport is, all the way through up into the city centre and past. Well, I think really what we're looking at is, for me, Manchester's not just a property story. It's not just it's great in value. It's an economic powerhouse, right? And we spoke about before, it's not just one of the top investment spots in the UK, but it's arguably been the number one investment hotspot throughout Europe over the last 4 or 5 years. I think, you know, the stats on the screen solidify that. The fact that you've got 5,000 new people on a yearly basis moving to the city for employment opportunities speaks volumes. And that stat alone shows a supply-demand imbalance. We looked at all the data and statistics going back over the last couple of years, and it's interesting to see how many units actually come to market on a yearly basis. And it's less than a third of the people that are moving there, i.e. the 5,000 new people moving on a yearly basis. So when you've got more people moving to an area that needs somewhere to live and purely not enough properties coming to market, that alone, you've got a huge imbalance. And when you've got a greater demand and supply, like any investment, right, we talk about, you've constantly got an increase in capital values. And with that, the rental yields will always follow. But then let's look forward. Let's look at over the next 15 years and what's happening. And for me, Manchester is nowhere near its peak. I think we're very much at the start of the growth story, albeit we've seen great growth already. But I think when we're looking at the global brands, i.e. W Residence, which you guys have brought to market, which hands over in about 15, 16 months, naturally will elevate prices. You've got Nobu Residence coming, you know, very soon this year, which again will elevate prices more so. And it's almost like every city centre scheme now is trying to compete with, I want the best amenities, I want the best facilities, I want it to be the location, which is driving demand. Because, you know, whilst the average salary in the UK is relatively low, i.e. 30,000, the wealth that we're seeing coming into Manchester now is really second to none. It's not just local affluency. You're seeing international tenants moving there, obviously international students moving there, international businesses are all relocating there as well. And they've got that massive pull factor, which is why you look at, you know, the forecasted statistics that we're looking at from big corporates like your JLL and the Savills, is the growth over the next 5 years is not too far shy of 30%, which for a lot of our investors globally, they're only putting down 25, 30% deposits. So you're actually making 100% return on your capital without taking into account any actually rental income, which is massive, right? There's not many investments that can deliver that type of return in a fairly low risk asset class. You know, last year alone, the UK market only delivered 112,000 new properties. The need was 300,000, and it's going to continue to be 300,000 on a growing basis. So that deficit's getting bigger and bigger. I think what's really important as well is that you can see the statistic on the screen. in the middle here, is that it's the largest population of 25 to 29-year-olds in the UK that are currently working in a city. What that means is you've got longevity, there's more taxes being deducted, which ultimately add to the overall economic growth. You can see there's at 86 billion. That's obviously the forecasted trajectory is huge when you're looking at Manchester and what's going on over the next 5, 10 and 15 years. But really, what do we look for? So let's look at the Manchester market. And I think this screen here, it really, again, it is the epitome of how the whole market and city is transformed and the regeneration. You can see here over a 10-year difference. Manchester is now like a mini concrete jungle, and the businesses that are moving there, the high-rise towers that are getting built, and they're all absolutely phenomenal buildings. And that's not just residential, it's also on the commercial side, which I know you guys have delivered commercial blocks in the city centre also. And as I mentioned, it's the type of individual that's now attracting. But when you've got the foundations and the recovery at 2015, which is really when I think the regeneration started to happen. Mm-hmm. You then fast forward 3-4 years, you've then got that commercial growth. You've got those large corporates that are now identifying Manchester as their new hub. COVID obviously played a massive part in that, where we've seen a lot of companies leaving London over sort of 2019, 2020, 2021, which then ties us on to the expansion of the city. So the more businesses that we've had move there, and the more infrastructure and investment we're having going into Manchester, naturally that city centre expands and swells. So if we look back 10, 15 years, what we would class as inner ring road, it's completely night and day, right? You had land available that was constantly needed to be built on, but people couldn't get planning permissions. I know when we spoke to, when we launched the W with you guys, we spoke to Gary, he mentioned that he'd had that plot of land for 15 years, but couldn't do anything with it. And that's the same principle for a lot of developers or a lot of people that have tried to develop. Like, it's not as straightforward. So when you've now got a growing population, a growing demand, but a lack of supply or a lack of options to now build, that's where we're seeing a huge increase. And then we look at the foundations of sort of the universities and the education side of things, which again are going to come on to. You got some of the best universities globally are based in the Northwest and based in Manchester. So that's not just attracting your local students, but students from across the country, but more so internationally as well. And the great statistic about Manchester is that over 51% of its students are staying in the city on a yearly basis, and there are over 120,000 students in the city. Mm-hmm. So if we're breaking that down to 40,000 per annum, let's say, you've got 20,000 individuals needing somewhere to live after university and after college. Well, Ben, I know we've had conversations about this. When you've left university, or when friends have left university, you certainly don't have any money to go and buy a property yourself.
None. I wish.
Listen, you party for 3 or 4 years, you get credit cards, you get student loans, and people typically pay off that student loans for a long time after. So the need for people to have somewhere to live is they have to rent, right? Fundamentally, that creates a huge demand in that local economy. And when we're tying in 5,000 new people moving there for employment opportunities and over 20,000 students that are staying there or graduates staying there post-education, those two figures alone, without looking at anything else, is creating the fundamentals of why you've got a huge imbalance from supply and demand. And then here you can see on the bottom of the screen the impact of the education side of Manchester. So just from the universities and colleges alone, it contributes over £6 billion to the local economy. You can see, University of Manchester, globally ranked 32nd top university in the world. You can see here, University of Salford, so on and so forth. So we're attracting top tier talent. And with that, the individuals that are staying in the city post-education are then looking for that type of employment, which is going to give them high income salaries, longevity. And again, when we're looking at a 25 to 29-year-old age range, you can see why Manchester has the highest percentage of those individuals in the UK.
Yeah, 100%. And I always sort of use myself as an example of that. Like, although I'm over 29 now, but originally I'm from the South, and I moved up to Manchester because there were better job opportunities for me up here. I felt, my cost of living was less, and you just see everything that's happening in Manchester. It makes it a more, for your work-life balance, it makes it a far more attractive place to be now, I think, than maybe 5-10 years ago, you know. So yeah, I always use myself as a bit of an investment case for it. Now going on to the sort of individual regeneration projects going on in and around the city. So if you're not familiar, in 2014, the government, they sort of implemented the Northern Powerhouse scheme, and that was to sort of rebalance the UK economy and to sort of bring more to the north and try and bring the north back onto sort of a level playing field, really for the first time, I guess, with London. And we saw a lot of investment into northern cities. We have been seeing a lot of billions of pounds of investment into northern cities, but the clear leader of that has been Manchester, and it's all the reasons that Lewis has just mentioned there. It's the universities, it's the fact that we've got two of the biggest football clubs in the world. We are a globally recognised city. We are the most recognised city in the UK outside of London, obviously. And the key driving factors around that. So if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you've got First Street regeneration, Mayfield District, and Sister. So these are three projects all happening within the ring road of Manchester. For us, we classify Zone 1 as anything that's happening in the ring road, on the ring road or within it, and that's where we tend to build, okay? Unless it's you know, housing schemes on the outskirts, but our main focus is city centre. These are all bringing new residential, new grade A commercial. Now, the driving factor behind that means that businesses are going to look from the likes of London. They're going to see that commercially their rents are more viable up here. They know that their employees will have a good standard of living, they'll earn a good wage, and then that continues to feed into the fundamentals behind people moving into the city as we continue to see the commercial aspect grow, the residential aspect grow. In the middle column, you've got Atom Valley. So that's been sort of dubbed as Manchester and the North sort of Silicon Valley. And that's bringing new manufacturing and industry back to sort of the northern suburbs over by like Oldham and Bury. And that's, again, a multi-billion-pound investment centre currently under construction. Old Trafford, I think we'll come on to on the next slide. But I think three of the really key ones to look at here in regards specifically to Obsidian is the Chapel Wharf regeneration, Great Ducey Street, and Noma. So Chapel Wharf falls directly outside the doorstep of Obsidian. And Obsidian's really nicely positioned. We'll come on to it on a later slide. But in the sense that it's on the ring road, it's a 5-minute walk into the city centre. But what's really key is it's a 5-minute walk into the CBD, which is Spinningfields. Chapel Wharf regeneration is improving connectivity between Obsidian and into Spinningfields. So new pedestrian walkways, new cycle paths as well. Alongside that, around 5 minutes away from Obsidian, we've got disused railway arches, which there are a couple of companies going in and repurposing these spaces. It's happening all over Manchester. It's really nice. So they're bringing new mixed-use spaces. So you'll see new gyms, new restaurants, bars, creative areas. And this is happening right on the doorstep of Obsidian. And we know these new Pilates studios and restaurants, they move in, they gentrify the area, they make it a more desirable place for people to want to rent, which in turn drives long-term value for being in this area. The Great Ducey Street regeneration is happening around about 5 to 10 minute walk away from Obsidian. And again, that's completely transforming the northwest side of the city as the city starts to expand and sprawl out from the ring road. But with it, it's bringing new commercial, new park spaces, doctor surgeries, schools, residential as well. And then Noma ties in quite nicely to that as sort of the bridge between the two. Noma is the sort of main financial hub of the city. It's where you've got the cooperative bank's headquarters, you've got insurance companies there, and that would be a really nice captured area for the sort of residents that you would be looking at moving into Obsidian. And with that, well-paid jobs, people earning a good wage. And where Salboy really fit into this sort of whole equation is we build best in class in the city. It's undeniable when you look at our schemes and you look at the facilities that we put in. People that are working at the likes of Deloitte or know, Barclays, wherever it might be, JP Morgan, these guys, they're going to rent, but they want to rent in the best. And that is the sort of void that we're filling in Manchester. We're building in A1 locations, we're building best-in-class facilities, and we're delivering on time.
And I suppose it's the question is, why does all that matter to investors? Well, for me, regeneration creates three key points. New demand hotspots, which obviously is evident from what we're seeing on the screen. Naturally, you get then capital uplift in your capital values in the immediate and the surrounding areas. But more importantly, from an investor perspective, it's improved rental desirability because tenants want to be based near the hustle and bustle. They want to be based near the employment opportunities, the transport links, the nightlife to a certain degree. So the fact that we've got so much going on in, not just in the city, but in that particular area where Obsidian's based on Trinity Way, I think it's an unbelievable opportunity to get in at what I still consider a really, really low price in comparable to what is coming over the next 2, 3, 4 years. That's in planning in Manchester. We've got some schemes which are going to be nearly double the price per square foot when you're looking at planning permissions that are going in, right? So naturally, when you've got those type of developments coming to market, coming to the city, as an investor getting in now at the price per square foot, the only way you can see growth going is one way. And for me, as I mentioned before, you're still buying into a city that's mid-transformation. We're nowhere near the peak, and we're still very much at the start of that upward trajectory, albeit we've already seen a great amount of growth already.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you mentioned, now we're only just starting to see the investment from the likes of Nobu, from W. And that's when I really think we're gonna take off massively, which leads you on nicely to what you see on screen now. So it sort of splits the city in half, I guess, if people are red or if people are blue. But ultimately, having both of these clubs, on the east side and the south side of Manchester, it's phenomenal for the city centre. You can never sort of overlook how much it does for the city for a global audience. People coming over here to watch the games, to go to the museums, to even just walk around on match days and just get a sense of the atmosphere. But I'm sure everyone would have seen that planning has been submitted to completely redevelop Old Trafford, build a new 100,000 seater stadium. I believe it'll probably be one of the largest in the world. But beyond that, what does it bring for the surrounding areas? There is a whole master plan in place. Again, new residential, new commercial, schools, everything. And this is bringing with it new jobs from a construction point of view, but then also once everything comes to completion as well. And this also will build into the infrastructure, the connectivity, linking up Trafford into city centre Manchester and beyond. So this really is, I believe it's the biggest regeneration project set to happen in the UK. So we're all eagerly anticipating that to get underway now.
Hopefully it doesn't have any impact on their performance, because we don't want to see them do any better than what they're doing already. Right?
There you go. Well, some people might, maybe not a Liverpool fan. On the left-hand side of your screen, this is another really exciting one. So third is indoor. I feel like I'm underselling it, calling it a spa, but it has indoor beaches. It's got it's temperature controlled. It's like Barbados in Trafford. This is set to open up in 2028. Construction's already underway. Again, these things are going to do huge things for the city. This is going to bring an audience from all over the UK. Historically, we know Manchester isn't famed for its nice weather, although I'm looking outside right now and there's not a cloud in the sky. But you'll find that people will want to come to the city centre for weekend breaks, to come and use these facilities, which they won't get anywhere else in the country. And again, just continue to drive the fundamentals behind why Manchester is such a desirable place, not just to live in, but to visit as well.
And I think, everything that we've just gone through there is it paints a very clear picture of there is so much going on in the city from an investment, not just nationwide, not just from the local council, but globally, the foreign direct investment coming in to build and to help these regeneration schemes. As Ben mentioned, are some of the largest in the UK. And with that comes the footfall and the traffic, right? We're seeing more people moving there every year for a variety of different reasons that we've already touched on. And with that, these type of individuals who are high earning, who are going to these big jobs in media, in tech, in the finance sectors, they do demand a certain level of living, and not everyone wants to buy. It may be that they're there for 2-3 years to comment, or they travel frequently and a variety of different reasons, or they simply can't afford. A lot of the tenants that we have in the schemes that we've handed over on wish they could buy, but for whatever reason, being in the UK with the cost of living over the last couple of years has made that more difficult. A pack of Lurpak going from £2 to £11, as some people moaned about, ultimately has a detrimental impact on how much you can save on a monthly basis. And there's a great article that came out about 2022, 2023, I think it was, in the Times, which basically said pre-COVID and pre sort of Liz Truss and the effect that she had on the economy, which ultimately was then a global impact, right, with everything that went on with interest rates and inflation. It would take a family of four, so a husband and wife and 2 kids, let's say in school, it would take them 5 years to save enough for their house deposit to go and buy their own home. If you included London in that, it was 7 years. Post-COVID and post Liz Truss's, 45 days, I think she was in power, right? That went to 10 years and 15 years if you include London, purely because the amount of people were saving in the UK on a monthly basis was less, cost of living increased, cost of debt increased, and it made it more difficult. From an investor perspective, that's exactly what you want to hear, because whilst we don't offer guaranteed rents and guaranteed yields, if someone can never afford to move out and buy their own place, you've got that guaranteed income stream coming in. And typically from handover, we have anywhere from 6 to 7 couples or individuals viewing one apartment, just because there's not enough quality property coming to market, but there's a huge demand for that property. So just before we go into itself, I want to play a quick video of this is one of the 2-bed show flats in Obsidian, and then we're going to go into a bit more about the development itself. And Ben, just coming back to the development, you can see here, obviously it's a very unique looking building. There's not many buildings like that in Manchester. Can you just give everyone on the webinar a bit of a background about what I suppose the idea behind this sort of facade and style is about?
Yeah, so as I mentioned right at the beginning, Simon and Fred's whole ethos is sort of redeveloping and building a lasting legacy here in the city. So for us, we always like to build individualistic projects. You'll actually see on the screen, so the project to the left of Obsidian is local Blackfriars, and then to the left of that, 55 Queen Street. So these are 2 of our other projects that we've built in the past. And you can see each one sort of stands alone in its design. Obsidian, is the black stone, the black rock, and that was kind of the thinking behind the facade. And then you'll see that it's got the sort of stage or staggered facade on the right-hand side, which offers some really nice private terraces for the 2 and 3 bedroom apartments on that side. For us, picking up this pocket of land, you'll see the road that runs alongside, that's the ring road. So this is the road that we were talking about, that anything on the inside of that is what we classify as sort of your zone 1 city centre Manchester. And, in terms of location, you're sort of 5 minutes walk into into the Selfridges end of Deansgate, which ultimately is where people want to go, is where they can shop, where they can go for nice food, good drinks, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And the development, 250 units, we're about 87% of the way sold. So not many units left. There's still some great investment units left that have been selling really well recently. But there are around 12 to 13% of the development left. Because it is still off plan, it is only a 15% down payment, with the balance to then come on completion in Q4. I think what's really important as well is that the lease that comes with the development, and this may be a bit alien to some of our partners or clients that are on the call at the moment, in that, apartments in the UK are typically leasehold, whereas, some cities like Dubai, as an example, apartments are freehold. The fact that you've got a 999-year lease essentially makes it a virtual freehold anyway, which is good as you get in the UK. And you can see, if you look back at the previous two developments, and this is, again, something that Salboy always sort of deliver on, is that every development's always better than the last, always offers more than the last. So, if you look at the comparable between, let's say, Waterhouse and Obsidian, purely from a location perspective, Waterhouse was part of the Great Ducey Street regen, which is outside of the Ring Road. This, for me, is one of the last gems that we've got within the Ring Road, because there's not many parcel or bits of parcels of land left. So the fact that you guys have been able to get this plot and deliver such a quality development, I think is going to really, really deliver well from an investment perspective.
Yeah.
And again, you can see here, so just on the right hand side, as Ben mentioned, this is Trinity Way, this is the Ring Road. We mentioned before, and Ben laughed, right, it is a mini concrete jungle now. And we've discussed many a times that it's all about location, and having the accessibility to spinning fields that Ben mentioned before. If you go down just to the bottom right hand side of the screen here, you down this road, you then into the top of the main shopping district. People want accessibility, and people want ease of getting from point A to point B, whether that be to work, whether that be to transport links, whether that be to the university, so on and so forth. But if we can get the last bit of land really that's ready to develop in the city centre, it means two things. The next developments coming up either have to be outside the city centre, in maybe not as a desirable location, or they have to be what's called a PD, a permitted development, where you have to buy an older building and try and go through planning. Now, the issue with what you have with that is, since the change in government and planning reforms over the last couple of years, that's becoming a lot harder than what it was previously. And Ben, me and you speak about all this time about, there's a lot of old office buildings in Manchester, or historical Grade 2 listed buildings. And to get those through planning now, you're looking at 4 to 5 years. Now, again, from an investor perspective, it's unbelievable to hear that, because there's just not enough supply coming to market. There's literally no land available to now build on inside the Ring Road, yet all the demand's coming there. So new companies are moving into new offices, graduates are going to be going working there, the transport links run throughout. And for me, when you've got that constant squeeze on supply, and then almost a decline, so there's no more available, that's where we're going to see the true value for money and the true sort of upward trajectory. Couple that with the new schemes that are coming into the city centre, which offer a significantly higher price per square foot. That really gives you your scope. And as we mentioned before, you're getting in the start of the transformation journey.
Yeah, 100%.
So Ben, do you just want to touch on the map? Obviously, you spoke about regeneration areas before, but I think this probably identifies more so the Chapel Street regen.
Yeah, absolutely. So this gives us a nice sort of bird's eye view. So the Ring Road you can see here looping around the city centre, and Obsidian's highlighted over here. So spinning fields would be around over this area. So that's around about a 5-minute walk to drop you into the main CBD area of the city centre. And then if we're cutting down Blackfriars Road, that runs us into Deansgate. So this is like the main street that runs from north to south, south to north in the city centre. So this is like where you've got, like I said earlier, all your nice restaurants, your nice bars, nightclubs. Like, this is where people want to be. There's a real buzz around Deansgate, especially on a day like today when the sun's shining. So this shows you how close you are into the heart of the city centre. Over here, you'll see Victoria train station, which again is going to take you about a 5 to 7 minute walk to get to. So really, really well situated, close to public transport links, but also right in the heart of the city centre. The Chapel Street framework will be redeveloping archways that run along. Well, actually here you can see the train track here. That's that dotted line. So running along there, you've got, I think it's 14 individual units currently being repurposed into restaurants, bars, coffee shops. There's also going to be new pedestrianised cycle paths and walkways dropping you down into spinning fields as well. And then they're constantly improving this is one thing that Manchester does lack, is green space, outdoor spaces. But they're currently redesigning and repurposing the walkways along the River Irwell, also giving us that kind of nice sort of outdoor space as well, right? Because one thing that we don't have is new parks coming up in Manchester. I mean, we've got the Lake District on our doorstep about 45 minutes away, but this is really important for people, having that kind of that sense of being able to get out there into a bit of green space once in a while.
Excellent. And just want to give a bit of insight about, obviously we've got there's the designs inside, and we focus on really post-COVID how we can maximize space, but also the concept of units looking larger than what they are, i.e. floor to ceiling windows, more light coming in. Is there really sort of the ideology behind how you guys build and how you design to make sure space is maximized?
Yeah, 100%. So that's key, obviously, post-COVID, right? And what we'll do is, I think if you go into some of our previous schemes and into some of the apartments, they can feel a little bit disjointed. And it's all part of sort of the growth process of being operational for 10 years. We're now getting to a point where, I was in Obsidian yesterday with a couple of clients, and the first thing they say to me is, wow, these feel really spacious. And it's because we've got history, we've got practice now in designing the floor space correctly. So, having these nice open living areas, kitchen areas, bedrooms, and trying to minimize sort of unnecessary corridor space. But a real key one to Obsidian, which you won't find in any other new build across Manchester, if you can see the sort of top middle image, that's a winter garden. So a lot of clients that we speak to on a daily basis that maybe aren't based in the UK, the norm for them, whether it be over in the Middle East or Europe, is that apartments come with balconies. And it's a bit of a different story here in the UK. Obviously, we don't have the same sort of weather systems, so you don't really use your balconies as much. And we took that into consideration over the past sort of 5-6 years. You'll see there we've built in these winter gardens. Now this gives you a really nice kind of in between the outdoor and the indoor. They're like a patio sort of tiled space with Juliet balcony doors which can slide open and give you that sense of sort of being outside even though you're not. It'd be nice in Manchester because it rains a lot, so if you're on a summer's day and it can be quite unpredictable, you can sit out there, you could have your lunch, you could have a morning coffee. So these I think are going to be really desirable to if you can purchase a unit of a winter garden, I think that's a massive box to be ticked. And I do genuinely think that once a renter goes into them and they sort of see these space, like it gets the cogs turning and they think, oh, okay, right, I can utilize this space in that way. And then on top of that, obviously you've got the floor to ceiling windows, you've got Juliet balconies. We've really tried to maximize the sense of, although we're in an apartment, you have that sense of sort of being able to get outside a little bit. You'll also see on the images as well, the materials that go into our schemes are always of the highest quality. There's no point in building best-in-class facilities in a project and then scrimping on the internals. You'll have seen it from that video Lewis played earlier. It looks incredible inside. There are also some added benefits to some of the larger, more premium units. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, we've even got some nice bespoke cabinetry, which we're fitting in as well. So it's a really unique scheme from the exterior all the way into the finer details in the interior as well.
And then really what you guys have had a huge focus on over the last 4 years that I've really noticed is the standout amenities that come with your developments. And, you know, when we look at sort of the data and the research, and even from our own management company, the length that tenants are staying in developments, it's night and day when you've got schemes that have the amenities and facilities where people really never have to leave.
Yeah.
Again, what's the thought process behind when you guys go into sort of the architectural planning and drawings? What is it that makes you want to build and design such quality and bring what you guys are bringing to life?
I guess trial and error. I think if you look at the previous, you know, the first sort of schemes that we did, it was, you know, concierge and a lift. And we've talked over it, you know, how much the city's changed since 2015. This is the new norm, you know. This is what people moving to Manchester want. These are people earning a good wage, wanting the best of the best. And ultimately, people nowadays, they want convenience. Like, you don't want to get home from work, you know, get changed out of your work clothes, get in the car, drive to the gym, you know, all this stuff just takes time. People are so busy nowadays. So in giving them everything within the building, it just creates that sense of, I can move here, everything's taken care of. You know, I don't need to overthink everything in, you know, outside of work. And we found, since including these facilities in our schemes, that the rental demand, the rental hype, the interest when you're starting to drip feed, you know, new construction updates and things like that, it's far, far superior to when we were doing these earlier projects. So that's kind of the thinking behind it. In here, you've got gym, and our gyms are always fitted out with brand new state-of-the-art equipment. You've got your co-working space. A lot of our residents will be hybrid remote, fully remote, overseas students as well, because Obsidian is, you know, it's a stone's throw away from Salford University, which is one of the main universities in the city. So obviously people need a space to study, to work. Cinema room as well. That's always a key one, which gets a lot of use. And then we've also got bookable dining and living rooms as well. So if you want to host a dinner party, have friends over, you can utilize that space for an evening. We've just found over the years that these are the developments that provide the most, interest for prospective tenants. That's where they tend to focus their attention. But I think over the long term, over the 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 years, these schemes hold the most value and see the greatest amount of growth. And I think an interesting thing to note now is a lot of our competitors are maybe sort of shying away a little bit from the facilities, but we're going all in on it because we see that's where the rental demand lies. And then one other thing as well is we've also got, specific to Obsidian, we've got a commercial unit on the ground floor as well, which we'll be looking to get a coffee shop or a little cafe in there as well. We're already in talks trying to source someone to go in there. So yeah, you'll have a nice coffee downstairs as well, which is always nice.
And I think there's just a couple of things to note on that. So you mentioned about, you know, some competitors or other developers that maybe shy away from that level of amenity or amenity at all, yet they would still typically still demand the same level of service charge, but not really get anything back for it.
Yeah.
And you know, you can see just from the pictures on the screen, the level of amenity and spec that you're getting with this development is arguably one of the best in the city. I think what's also important to know, we spoke about sort of the tenant demand and the longevity of a tenant. If for whatever reason a tenant was to move out, it also reduces void periods when you've got such a high spec and high quality development, because they're in such demand that people want to be living in the best areas and best location and ultimately the best developments. So again, from an investor perspective, if you've got really that last piece of parcel within the ring road, and then everything else is going to be more expensive after. If you've got reduced void periods, if you've got a greater resale market because of the type of development, the location and look and feel, it's going to deliver an unbelievable return on that initial capital, depending on when you've invested, whether that be 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it may be, you're going to see great returns.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I suppose, can you just give a quick update of where we are construction-wise? Obviously, we're completing towards the end of the year now.
Yep.
And I think it's quite unique the way you guys build, which is different to a lot of other developers.
Yeah, of course. So I think that, look, Domus do a fantastic job. For anyone that knows anything around sort of Manchester and construction, you know that Domus are, they're at the forefront of building here. They hit their targets consistently, and the build quality is always of the highest order. I was in there yesterday with a couple of clients, like I mentioned. We've got our show apartments, so a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom show apartment now open and ready to view. So if there is anyone on this call who wants to come and take a look, I can always show you around. Happy to do so. I really think it speaks volumes when you can get in there and see exactly what we're doing. We're signing off the 2nd floor as we speak, and they are up to, I think, floor 16 at the moment, just fitting everything out. But we had our topping out party probably 6 weeks ago now. So yeah, they're flying through it. They're flying through it, and we'd originally given Q4 26 as the completion time schedule, that 3-month period, but recently sort of locked in November, and just going, like we said, on Domus's track record, we will expect this to be finished and completions to be served come November.
Excellent. Okay, and guys, as we mentioned before, it's a 1585 payment plan. So we have units that are sub 300,000, 299, 500. So you're getting in for less than £50,000 originally, which when you actually then look at, and I think, sorry, just to go before we go on to that, the prices haven't increased since launch. So you're actually buying at prices from 2 years ago, May 24, we launched this scheme. So you're buying at prices from 2 years ago, with an asset that's going to start delivering you income in the next 6 months. It sort of ticks all the boxes when you're only putting 15% down initially. So an unbelievable payment plan, Ben, an unbelievable location, and with that, an unbelievable developer. So thank you very much for your time today. Hope everyone on the call has found it extremely beneficial. If you do want any more information, please do reach out to your API account manager that you'll be liaising with on a daily basis. As Ben mentioned, there are show flats available to view. Financial can be provided, and also selection of units based on your circumstances and criteria. So thank you from me, thank you from Ben, and yeah, good luck.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.